All right, going live. Welcome to our nutrition talk. John is hopefully going to be joining right in, and we will get started. There we go. Submitted you, I think. There we go.
All right, we're in.
Awesome. Can you hear me all right on your end?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect. Glad this is
Great.
working. I got nervous there for a minute.
I know. Me too. Me too.
All right, awesome. Well, I say we just hop right into it, and if more people start to join in, we'll kind of fill them in. We'll maybe like who you are and what we've covered, but even if only a few people join in, this is going to go on our page, and people usually tune into that. And I'll potentially be ripping this off Instagram, putting it on our YouTube channel. So I hope to blast it out to a lot of Team Philly people.
Cool. Sounds good.
So for anyone who isn't here live with us, if you do not already know John, he's one of the on-site nutritionists that we work with. And he's available to anyone who is at the Philadelphia home office, or I believe is it Ewing? Is that how you pronounce it? Jersey office?
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
So if you haven't already worked with John and you have insurance through Philly, I believe you guys get 3 free consultations with him or Ashley now, who's also on the team. So
6.
6. All right. Well, 6
Yeah.
better. So you guys got that. John, I won't keep talking. If you will, would you give a little just intro to who you are? And I know the first question I sent over to you, maybe you could go into this is, why did you become a nutritionist and what sent you down that career path?
Sure. No. I'm John Rickards. My company's name is Your Wellness Consultants. I'm one of the founders and a partner in the group. We have 7 dietitians on staff. Philly Insurance employees may know Ashley from hearing her speak. She's actually doing 2 cooking seminars this month and actually another talk later on in the month. But we work with companies, we work with individuals throughout the Philadelphia area. And actually now with telemedicine, we've been able to access people all over the country, which has been great. We've been around for about 8 years. We work with a number of large, mid-sized companies in Philadelphia. But we also work with a number of individuals that have been recommended to us via their doctor, chiropractor, physical therapist, or just simply found us via a Google search. We work primarily with insurance companies. So a lot of people, the great thing about our service is that it's covered 100% through their insurance plan. So there's, no costs out of their pocket. A lot of people don't even know that exists.
Yeah.
But when they do, it's great and it's encouraging. So that's a little bit about us and our company. I've been a dietitian personally for about 12 years now. It's kind of weird to even say 12 years. I've been doing one thing. But it's been good because, over the years, your philosophy and your approach changes through experience.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to your original question, why I got into this field, it kind of fell into my lap, to be quite honest with you. I originally was seeking a career in physical therapy. My plan was to actually go into a PT program and go that road.
Yeah.
I was an athlete through college, so I was, kind of taking all the prerequisites that I needed to kind of get into the next program.
Gotcha.
And so I originally fell into the nutrition path just because that kind of covered most of the prerequisites that I needed originally through physical therapy. And, I just started to relate to it a lot. I had lost my father as a teenager through cancer, grandparents, an uncle, an aunt, all cancer. And that really started to hit home a little bit when I started to learn about nutrition and how it affects disease states, particularly cancer. And that was a big part of it. So once I got into it, I enjoyed it. I liked it. I could connect to it. So that's what really was my passion originally was cancer and all that. I also obviously was an athlete, so I enjoyed working with sports and energy and performance and all of that. So yeah, that's where it kind of all started for me.
Okay, cool. And you mentioned that, well, I have, I guess, a 2-part question. I saw some people give you shout outs in here. and one of them said that you're a great nutritionist. And I think I even posed the question, why did you become a nutritionist? Is there a difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian, or is that just semantics?
Yeah, there actually is a difference. Some dietitians really actually take it personally
Yeah.
when you get called a nutritionist.
Okay.
I don't, it doesn't bother me at all
Yeah.
because most people don't know and they're not aware. But the big difference between dietitian and nutritionist, dietitian goes to school for this. This is what they got a degree in.
Yeah.
They got licensed through the state. They had to take a board exam. You have to keep up with CEUs.
Gotcha.
So there's a whole process. You have to keep up with a licensure.
Yeah.
And we have access to work with insurance companies because of all of that.
Gotcha.
Nutritionists, anyone can really be a self-proclaimed nutritionist. They can take weekend courses, semester courses, online courses, something like that.
Gotcha.
Maybe they didn't take any courses.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a very loose term for someone that works in the nutrition field as nutritionist, but dietitian, you can feel confident that they have schooling in the field of nutrition, all of the science behind it, etc.
That's good to know. Because yeah, I'm guilty. I interchange those terms just because I don't think much about it. But yeah, registered dietitian. I've seen that, so that makes sense now.
Yeah, but good question.
Yeah, good to clarify. All right, kind of building off of that, and you might have mentioned this a bit, but you also said it's evolved. How would you describe maybe you, and then if you want to go broader, your company's do you have a general approach or philosophy, if that's the right way to say it, how you guys approach your nutrition or diets, and when you're talking to your clients, the general ethos of all that?
Sure. You may hear this term a lot, but we're whole food based. We're not going to be recommending a whole lot of processed foods to anybody. But I guess the key in all of this, and I may hit upon this with some of your other questions coming up, we really try to put nutrition recommendations in the context of individuals' lives versus kind of blanket statements of nutrition. For us to say oh, we believe in the keto diet. Well, that doesn't apply to everybody. There may be a circumstance where that works, but for us to say oh, we're a low carb based company, that doesn't work for everybody. And we're really not considering then the context of what some people are going through, whether it's health concerns, whether it's cravings, whether it's emotional eating, connection, or a history of eating disorders. So we really try to personalize that and put nutrition recommendations in the context of that individual's life. And that's probably the key there with our approach.
From, I guess, my limited knowledge when it comes to nutrition, it seems like that's the only real scientific smart way to go about it is an individual approach. Because if you're blanketing it out from the beginning, you're leaving so much of the context out of it. So
exactly. We have to assess before we recommend. We need to understand what's going on. What are your goals? But also, what are the circumstances within those goals? What are we dealing with family history? What are we dealing with current health issues and concerns? So yeah, that's a big part of it.
Okay. So obviously individualized, but is there any common themes you would say you see in that? I don't know if it has this changed over the years, that you see reoccurring themes. I mean, you could maybe more specific than just being overweight or, hey, I want to increase performance. Is there even if it's a psychological issue or a relationship with food that presents itself a lot?
Yeah, I think we're getting away from it a little bit more. I think people are more open to discussing it, but for were around, and then you had intermittent fasting kind of come into play. You had Whole30, all of these very restrictive diet plans. There was something that came about known as orthorexia, which is a food obsession, but people could view it as a healthy food obsession, even though it's still an obsession. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people understand, that if you're, the only thing that you think about, the only thing that you talk about is food, and everything that you do is food related, and you get worried if you get off track a little bit, that's orthorexia. Even if you could be seeing, good results and to the rest of the world, it's viewed as, oh, that person's super healthy. Yeah. But maybe their psychosocial approach or their relationship with food isn't so healthy. So, that was a common theme we saw for a while there with all of these very restrictive diet plans coming out there.
So this might lead into this next question too. What do you think one of the biggest misconceptions people have? Because coming from a dietitian might be to say people are food obsessed. They would think, well, oh, obviously you're food obsessed, but you're even recognizing like, hey, like there's a healthy way to go about like recognizing reality and facts and like, hey, we have to take these measures, but at the same time, putting it, you know, all in perspective. Is
Sure.
that do you say people come in maybe with that misconception that they have to be obsessed with it, or is there other misconceptions out there that you would think of?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And maybe this will, you know, what I just spoke about will lead into this answer a little bit more. But I feel like very common to see people try to label themselves. They need to fit into a category. They need to be, you know, I'm vegan.
Hmm.
I'm low carb. I'm keto.
Yeah.
I'm you know, whatever else there is. Obviously, a number of them, but and they feel like they need to fit into that category. There's no in between, right? And that's a big misconception because we as dietitians, we take like a little bit from everything,
Yeah.
right? There's things that work for people, but we're not trying to put them into a label or a category.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's something I always recommend to people, especially people. I see it a lot with people going vegan.
Uh-huh.
It's like they feel like they need to go from like, you know, say they're a meat eater, they go from a meat eater to being vegan. Like
Yeah.
there's no transition
Yeah.
to that, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't need to fit into a category. Maybe our goal is just, hey, let's eat less meat.
Yeah.
Let's try to transition off of that. We can't, you know, we don't need to label ourselves vegan within 30 days, right? There's no police out there that's gonna
Yeah.
like give you a ticket for not being vegan and you call yourself vegan, right?
Yeah. I noticed this even in like a personal training context, is like well, even from me personally working out, it's like an all or none mentality. So I'll write
Yeah.
a workout plan and like I'm gonna hit it 4 days a week. It's an hour workout, and you know I'm hitting everything. It's the perfect plan. And then I messed up one day, and then I'm like, all right, well I already messed up, so I guess I'll get to it next week. Rather than the smarter thing would be, you can still work out for 20 minutes today, and that's way better for you than nothing at all. And
Sure.
building that momentum. So I feel like in a diet context, people, and I've done this too, is set yourself up for failure in the sense of like super restrictive, and then you mess up, and then it's like, oh, all right, well I messed up, so let me just stop.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, life is always evolving and it's always like kind of rolling hills.
Yeah.
Like there's never, it's always, you know, I'm sure you see this too. You work with that person that's like, I'll just wait until this big project is over. Or, you
Yeah.
know what? I'm just going to wait till after the holidays. Then we'll link up. Right.
Yep.
But we have to think like that's going to come again. You're going to have another big project. You're going to have another holiday season. You're going to have another winter that comes.
Yeah.
All creates and presents these challenges that we just have to learn to work through. And that's the only way we're going to get through it is if we experience it
Yeah.
and we learn from it. And so maybe next winter, hey, we do a little bit better than this winter. Or maybe next holiday season, we do a little bit better than last holiday season.
Yeah.
But the only way that we really get through all that is by committing to still working through all those life events.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so moving on a little bit, I think this will kind of tie into almost everything we've been talking about, but building off those misconceptions and, you know, some of the roads that we take down that might not be so healthy in the age of like influencers and then like social media people, and you were even mentioning like anyone can kind of label themselves a nutritionist nowadays. Is there any like pet peeves that you have as a nutritionist, things that you would wish people would stop talking about or promote?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of pet peeves, but I'll focus on one more specifically tied to the social media is the product recommendations.
Mm.
You know, I don't know how many people I follow, you know, they may not even be they may not even be in the health industry.
Yeah.
Say that, you know, they're more into fashion or something like that, right? And they'll post about this product, how this product made my life better. This made me lose weight, or this helped me get to my goals, right? And that's just false.
Yeah. Yeah. John, we might have lost your audio a little bit. Oh, there you go. You're coming back.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But it's never just a single product
Yeah.
that really has gotten anyone to that point, right? And so we think that it creates this mentality where there's like these individual specific products or supplements out there
Yeah.
that make us lose weight or that give us energy or that, you know, control our hormones, right? And that's just not the case.
Yeah.
You know, nothing works like that. So that is a big pet peeve that you know, it's very easily to buy into that like whole social media, you know, this person looks great, right?
Yep.
let's check out this product.
Yeah.
So I really try to avoid all that.
Yeah, unfortunately, you don't make as much money telling people that, like, hey, the reality is, like, it's not,
Yeah.
there's no real money. I mean, you can maybe write a book or something, but there's no real money to be made off giving people, like, the truth, which is there is no magic pill or there is no magic supplement that's going to get you from, point A to point B, really.
Yeah. And yeah, that's the hard thing, and, it's $1 billion industry. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of money to be made in this industry by products and diet related items.
Yeah.
So
if someone comes in to you, like to you, to your office or whatever, your consultation, and they kind of they have this mindset, how do you kind of steer them away without totally maybe like derailing their motivation? Because I guess if like you're like, all right, I'm going to do something, and then they've been listening to some influencers and they have this idea of what they should be like, how they should be approaching a diet, and then you're kind of coming in and you probably don't want to be like, hey, everything you know is wrong, do this and this. How do you try to transition them and guide them to, get on the right path without just telling them flat out, hey, like, unfollow all your Instagram?
sure.
You know what I'm saying? Without offending.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. Well, first of all, if someone comes in that motivated, I'm not taking the wind out of their sails.
Yeah.
Now, so I'm not going to do something unethical that I don't believe in. So I'm not just going to be like, oh, you want to do a keto diet? Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
But I'll try to work with them in that. Like, hey, I'm fine with someone working on a low carb diet. I will support you. I'll teach you. I'll help you along the way with that.
Mm-hmm.
But as we go, I'll hopefully start to educate them, and they put their trust in me to say, hey, hopefully this guy knows what he's talking about. He's been doing it long enough, and they're more open to it, and they're accepting of my philosophy and my my approach. So, but absolutely, would I never really take that away from somebody? I'm not going to shoot someone down like that at all.
Yeah, gotcha. So have you tried any of these more popular diet trends like keto, intermittent fasting, any of that? And did you have any success with it? Any thoughts on them? Or do you try to stick to, more just whole foods, minimally processed, like get your macros in and that's it?
Yeah, I did early on. Like when I was an inexperienced dietitian, even I got influenced.
Yeah.
Even, you start to see people post about, hey, I lost X amount of weight, or, you see this, I'm into, weight training and things like that. You see a guy that's like jacked and, they write about what they're doing. You're like, oh, well, maybe I should try that. So I've tried like versions of paleo. I tried the whole low carb thing for a while. I've even tried intermittent fasting, and, I was just miserable. I just, you couldn't enjoy some of the things that you really love. And it's just not a way to really live, So, I viewed them as, I was just going to try them so I could speak to them, right? And relate to my clients. But outside of that, it's just not a long-term sustainable approach.
Yeah.
It just, thinking about going low carb for the rest of my life, I just couldn't imagine that happening.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of, I don't know if this is the correct term, I might be completely getting this wrong. It's maybe called the Dunning-Kruger effect in terms of being an expert, where when you know nothing, you think you know a lot. Or at the very start, at least you're like, you know nothing, you learn a little bit and you think you know everything there is to know. And then as you learn more, you start to realize you know nothing. And it slowly starts to come back out and level off. But it's never really as high as when you maybe you learn about the paleo diet and you're like, I've got it figured out. Like, this is the thing. And then you slowly start to realize like, oh, all right, well, what's the underpinning, why is the paleo diet working? Like, what is the underpinning mechanisms of it? And you start to realize like, oh, okay, I didn't know as much as I really thought I did.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That was me early on. Like I was confident. I played sports. I knew what I was talking about. I had good experience. I ate well personally. Hey, everyone should be able to do this. Like I know my stuff, right? But then you start to realize like, hey, life circumstances are different for everybody.
Yeah.
You got to be able to relate to people. And I only learned that really through experience. So that was that's a big part of it. So absolutely I can relate.
Gotcha. All right, just a few more questions. I won't take up too much of your time. I'm sure we've already gone over like 15 minutes here, but any generic advice that you would give to someone when they're like just trying to get their diet in order? So for instance, I had a client last night and I put the disclaimer out there to them. I'm not a dietitian, but I pretty much constructed what would be like somewhat of a broad, you know, generally speaking, here's what you should be trying to eat every day. And I even went so far as like, here's your calories, here are your macros. If you want to weigh your food, like I went that hard. But then I gave them the other option. I was like, if you're not gonna, like, here's what you should do ultimately if you were, you know, not a human and could just get it right every single time, versus, hey, here's generally the food you should be eating and try to eat like this many meals a day, giving them more like broader parameters. Maybe this is an individual thing, but have you noticed, do people have more success with one or the other? Like, do people like to have that, here's exactly what you should eat in the exact amounts and the exact times? Or do you find people have more success when you just try to like maybe focus on one thing or give broader parameters?
So it's a progression over time, to be quite honest with you. I generally, and this is generally speaking, we would start broad and kind of narrow that focus in as we go. And, you know, maybe you get more food specific as you go along. Day one, I'm not telling someone you need to eat X amount of raspberries versus X amount of blueberries because the difference between the sugar content is this, right?
Too much.
I'm not doing that day one. That's very high level, or something that's really, honestly, to start, unimportant. So we usually start with structure. We start with water. We start with food combinations. Those are very common themes to walk out of our sessions day one. But also with day one, you're establishing the purpose. Like, what is the purpose of all this? What are we getting out of this? And that's when we take into consideration the context of what people are going through, what they're living with, lifestyle, etc. But structure is the big thing. Day one, to start a successful plan, you need to have structure in your routine. Because that's what creates repetitive behaviors, and repetitive behaviors is what adds up and accumulates to progress. That's really a key walking out of our meetings day one, is trying to create structure and routine.
So worrying less about macros at first, and if you can at least get 3 to 6 healthy meals with the right foods, that's a good starting point. And if you can do that, it's easier to adjust your protein content up or down accordingly.
Exactly. You know, a lot of times I'll see people, I mean, I try to avoid to get to macros, to be quite honest with you. If I can work with somebody and avoid talking macros with somebody, I will do everything I can to avoid that conversation. Not because I don't think macros matter, but I think by you working on behavioral changes, the macros fall into place if you think about certain things. If I say, hey, I want, you know, think about even distribution over the course of the day. What I mean by that is, hey, your breakfast should be close to the size of your dinner. People go, oh, wow. You know, I'm eating a yogurt in the morning that's 90 calories, and I eat, you know, chicken, potatoes, and vegetables for dinner. That's a difference of 90 calories to, say, 600 calories. That's lopsided a little bit. So if I say, hey, let's work on even distribution of your energy intake over the day, now they think I need to beef up breakfast, I need to cut down dinner. Now, by them doing that, a lot of times they feel more satisfied over the course of the day. So it may help with some of their tendencies or behaviors naturally. So if I can avoid that macro conversation, I try to do it, because how long are you going to be counting macros for?
It dies a lot quick. Unless you're, I guess, like an elite level athlete, and even then, I'm sure they're probably doing it for like short windows of time to achieve, you know, a goal probably.
And that's how we use it, honestly. When we do track and we do talk macros, I do it for segments of time. You know, just that like big commitment to like, oh, I got to record now forever. That's a lot to ask of people. So I say, hey, let's record for a 2-week window. Let's see what's going on. Let's make some adjustments to that, and then we can kind of get beyond it. But yeah, that's a big commitment to ask people to record for extended, long periods of time.
Absolutely. So have you noticed that just focusing on the structure and like the behavioral change things gets people going in the right direction? Because I've noticed, like, let's say someone comes in, they're going for weight loss. Maybe it's just the culture, things like biggest winter challenges. People expect, like, I want to lose 12 pounds like in 30 days. And you're like, well, I mean, maybe, but realistically, like, that probably won't happen, or should we even be going for that necessarily? So do you get people still heading in the right direction with those structural changes? And is that usually enough to get them where they want to go? Or I guess that would hone in more.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely honest with somebody. I want to create realistic expectations to start,
Yeah.
even if that meant I lose a client or two. Although I have to admit, I haven't lost a client or two by being honest.
Yeah.
Honesty is everything, right? And it really starts you know gain their trust by doing that. So if someone just has really super real unrealistic expectations, I'll try to hone that in for them
Hmm.
and talk about, okay, you know, maybe our goal should maybe look more like this when it comes to weight loss in a certain amount of time,
Yeah.
and this is how we're going to go about getting there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that I just found that I have to be open with people and
Yeah.
set those expectations up front.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Last thing I'll leave you with. We're focusing a lot on weight loss, and I feel like generally, even like on our page, we focus a lot on that because it's a lot of people's goals. But any advice for like a relatively already healthy, fit person, or maybe even someone, you know, like myself who's like looking to gain muscle that wants to take things to the next level? I mean, we kind of talked on a lot of this. Would you say, hey, maybe try counting the macros at that point if you've honed in on a lot of those behavioral changes already? Or is there something else I'm not thinking of?
Yeah, that's probably the person I would start to talk about maybe macros a little bit, but I want to go beyond macros. I maybe want to talk about some micronutrients as well.
Uh-huh.
Hey, are you getting enough magnesium? How about fiber? Fiber is a big thing that, you know, is the foundation of overall healthy eating,
Yeah.
is fiber intake. They relate fiber intake to, you know, reduce disease risk of all the major lifestyle related chronic diseases, whether it's cancer, diabetes, heart disease, even a lot of the mental or Alzheimer's, memory loss, etc. Colon cancer, breast cancer, right? Um, and we overlook it.
Yeah.
Our whole, I mean, and I get the food industry kind of went this route, and so did the supplements, and that's why they're making a lot of money off it. But they kind of like took our focus and they said, hey, protein,
Yeah.
go protein,
Yeah.
right? So we think protein, we forget fiber. But that's something I want to talk to everyone about. I mean,
Yeah.
5% of our population gets enough fiber. 5% of Americans get enough fiber.
And is that, correct me if I'm wrong, other than I'm thinking like fiber sources, would you want that to be coming from vegetables essentially, like just different color vegetables and some other sources, I guess?
Yeah, so it's really hard to get you know, men need 35 grams a day, women closer to 25 grams a day. It's really hard to get 35 or 25 grams of fiber from vegetables. I
Yeah.
mean, unless your diet is like, you know, 50% vegetable,
Yeah.
really hard to get that number in there. So we have to go to other sources. I'm a huge advocate of seeds. I
Okay.
love pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds. They add so much value from a fat, fiber, but also a mineral standpoint.
Okay.
They have phytonutrients in them that we can't get from other foods. So
Yeah.
seeds are great. Nuts are okay when it comes to fiber, but beans are heavy hitters.
Okay.
Lentils, black beans, organic edamame, all good choices. And then you have even fruit. I mean,
Yeah.
raspberries, for instance, blackberries. That's 8 grams of fiber per serving.
Okay.
8 grams of fiber. That's a third of your fiber intake, one serving of raspberries a day,
All right.
right?
Fiber.
So for someone who needs to go to the next level, those are the conversations we have. Like, let's get food specific. Hey, let's talk about why you need to get chia seed into your diet, or let's talk about why you need to get, you know, lentils into your diet, quinoa, oatmeal, you know, very, very specific foods. And there's reasons behind that. So, you know, if it's a more of a physical goal, hey, I want to build muscle, I want to get leaner, we'll talk about macros, but we will also really implement that very food specific, you know, conversation later on when someone really has the fundamentals down.
Cool. All right. Well, awesome. That gave me some good advice. I know some people, we have a decent amount of people on here. I'm sure they love to hear that too. But I won't take up a lot more of your time. So if there's any last things you want to say, but again, I'll just reiterate to anyone who's in here or who's going to view this later that John is one of our on-site nutritionists. And if you have not already utilized him, you get 6 sessions as long as you have insurance through the company. So keep that in mind and be sure to email John. We will put his contact information in the comment section of this video. John, any last things you want to say?
No, that's it, Mike. Thanks for having me. Great conversation.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can do this again. Hopefully we get good feedback. So yeah, happy to help.
Yeah, this was fun. I appreciate it. We're signing off. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, Mike. Bye bye.